So in this video, we're going to talk about how to solve quadratic equations with tables and graphs. So solutions to quadratic equations, remember, we can have one real solution, two real solutions, or no real solutions. And we can see this pretty quickly by looking at the graph of a quadratic function. If it has one real solution, you'll see that the graph will have one x-intercept. It'll look like the graph is kind of like sitting on the x-axis. If it has two real solutions, which is the most common scenario, you'll see that the graph will cross the x-axis at 2 points. If it has no real solutions, the graph will kind of look like it's hovering because it won't ever actually cross the x-axis. So we can solve quadratic equations with graphs. And so the main thing you need to do when starting to solve is set the equation equal to 0. So it has to have the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. And then we can go ahead and type this into Desmos. And then we're going to click on the points where the graph crosses the x-axis and we'll see the coordinates of those x-intercepts. The x-coordinates of the x-intercepts will tell us the solutions to this quadratic equation. So let's look at an example. Suppose we want to solve x squared minus 8x equals negative 12 by graphing. Well, the first thing that we need to do is we need to go ahead and set this quadratic equation equal to 0. So that's extremely important. You don't want to go ahead and type this in because you'll get a very different answer. So in order to set it equal to 0, I'm going to go ahead and add 12 to both sides of my equation. And when I do that, I get x squared minus 8x plus 12 equals 0. So now I'm going to go ahead and type that in. So I have x squared minus 8x plus 12. And remember, we don't want to write the equals 0 part. We're typing this in as a quadratic function. If you want to, you can say this equals y, but we're just going to look at the parabola here. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on those x-intercepts. You can see we have 2. And so those x-coordinates are going to tell us the solutions to this quadratic equation. So the two solutions are going to be x equals 2 and x equals 6. So let's suppose we want to solve x squared minus 12x plus 48 equals 12 by graphing. Once again, we don't have a quadratic that's set equal to 0, but we can go ahead and fix that using some algebraic steps. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go ahead and subtract this 12 from both sides. And when I subtract 12 from both sides, I get x squared minus 12x plus 36 is equal to 0. Now, once again, I'm going to go ahead and type this into Desmos. So I have x squared minus 12x plus 36. And you can see I have a situation where I just have one solution, right? You can see it looks like this graph is just kind of sitting on the x-axis. So my one solution is going to be x equals 6. So now you can go ahead and pause the video and try solving this equation on your own. So this one, once again, you'll have to set it equal to 0, and you can do that by subtracting 10 from both sides of this equation. When you subtract 10 from both sides, you'll get x squared minus 3x minus 10, and then you can see that the two solutions will be at x equals negative 2 and x equals 5. So to find the solutions to quadratic equations, you can also use the table of values that you generate from graphing. So I want you to remember what this means when we're talking about it. Okay, so remember the zeros of a quadratic function will tell you the solutions, right? We talked about it in the last video. So remember, we have to set the quadratic equal to 0 to find the solutions. So if we're looking at the table that represents the graph of a parabola, the places where y equals 0 are going to tell us the solutions to that quadratic equation. So for example, if we have x squared plus 6x plus 8 and we go ahead and graph it in Desmos, it's going to give us this table of values. If we look at the table of values, the places where the function is equal to 0, so you see here at negative 4 and at negative 2, we have the two solutions to that quadratic equation, x squared plus 6x plus 8. So here's how you go about doing this in Desmos. So you start off always setting the quadratic equation equal to 0, and then you're going to type the ax squared plus bx plus c portion into Desmos. Then you're going to want to click the edit list icon, which looks like this little gear symbol here, and then you'll have a create table option that will show up once you have an equation typed in. And then you're going to look at the table of values, and then you're going to look at the places where the function is equal to 0. So let's try this example. So let's suppose that you have x squared minus 3x minus 4 equals 0. So let's go ahead and type that in now to Desmos. So x squared minus 3x minus 4. And I'm going to click this edit list icon. And then you see here, I can create a table. So I click create table. And you can see, well, it looks like it has two solutions, right? Because I can see it's crossing the x-axis here and here. But my table of values is only showing me one place where the function is equal to 0. But if you want to double check, you can just go ahead and type in that value. You can type in x equals 4 and you can see equals 0. Okay, so anywhere where the function is equal to 0 are going to be my solutions. So my two solutions are going to be x equals -1 and x equals 4. So based on what we just talked about, I'd like for you to think about the answer to the following question. The following table of values represents the function y equals x squared plus 2x minus 15. What are the solutions to the quadratic equation x squared plus 2x minus 15 equals 0? So since you're given a table of values, you can just look at it and quickly identify the two places where this function is equal to 0. The corresponding x values are going to tell you the solutions to this quadratic equation. So you can see that the solutions are x equals -5 and x equals 3. So once you set a quadratic equation equal to 0 so that it has the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, you can use tables or graphs to solve it.